Yeah, hello and welcome to a new episode of our weekly Spielworxx chat, season 2. My name is Uli Blennemann, but I'm having the wonderful Mandy Hutchinson from Ottawa, Canada, as my guest today. Mandy, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is my pleasure. It is all my pleasure. And if you, the viewers, if you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat window, and I'm sure Mandy will respond. Um, so to start, Mandy, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my goodness. I'm sure a lot of people know these things already, but hey, it's always good to talk about them again. So, most of you probably know me from the Dice Tower. I do the podcast with the lovely Suzanne Sheldon. I also have my own channel, To Die For Games, and Suzanne and I have a joint channel called Salt and Sass Games. That's just the side job. My day job is I am a teacher with the federal government. There you go.
Which I find very interesting. We will move to the channels and what you're doing a little bit later. But I noticed, and this I find really fascinating, that you are using games in the classroom, right? Which types of games are you using, Mandy?
So, for those who don't know, I used to teach children. Now I teach adults. So it is a little bit different. And having the virtual environment has changed things a little bit. So sometimes the classic kind of games work really well, in the classroom, like your Jengas and your Scrabbles and things like that. Those are great for icebreakers. Sometimes I'll take party-esque games tend to work really well in the classroom because I can tailor them. So, for example, we had a game that's a roll and write. And I will use this in, for example, performance management, which is one of the classes that I teach. And we'll have it where one person is the manager or supervisor and the other person is the employee. So I will give them the game. I haven't told them anything about the game and say, okay, I'd like you as a supervisor to teach the game now to your employee. And it's really interesting to see the different styles. And from that, I say, okay, so how did you communicate? Were you able to understand the rules? Were you able to come to a consensus? Did someone get mad? How did you learn? Did you read and the other person wait and you taught it? So it kind of provides lessons in a way. But those kinds of smaller games are probably the best types for the things that I'm doing right now.
Interesting. And by the way, hello, Chris, to the UK, and hello, there's designer Stefan Risthaus. Good seeing you. And does it give you also a different kind of what complexity in games mean, a different sense? Because we gamers, we think, this game isn't that complex, so everybody can play. Did you see where some non-gamers or people who rarely game, where they stumble or where they have problems, or isn't this the case? So, yeah,
In the classroom, are you
yes,
talking about
please.
specifically? Yeah, so a lot of the time most people in the class have not played games or they're familiar with the games like Monopoly and that sort of thing. So when I bring in a game that's different than what they're used to, takes them by surprise, but they're not looking at it because I'm presenting it to them as an activity more so than a game. Even though it is a game, there's a lesson to be learned. There's some type of comprehension of learning from that, so they're looking at it from that perspective. And then it's kind of a bonus that they had fun doing it. And they're like, okay, I like this game. Where did you get it? Where can I buy it? So it's like a double folded thing that happens there. Less so when I use RPGs, because I do use a lot of RPG elements in classroom as well. Those ones are a bit trickier, but the smaller games, definitely people are approaching it as an activity for the class. What am I learning? And then have the thought, okay, this might be something that I can do, even though I might have struggled in the class. We talked about it, we explained it. Now I'm going to foray into maybe trying other games that I could do with play with my family. So yeah.
Interesting that you are using RPGs more than board games. Is it because they tell stories better? Because it's more narrative, so there's a different flow between people, or what is the reason, Mandy, for that?
Exactly what you said. There's a bit more, and I have to be careful. I don't want this to sound like games cannot be creative, but games are meant to be played in a certain way. Like you can develop your own type of strategy within that game. But RPGs kind of, sure, you have this is the idea, but it really is up to you to tell the story. And I
Yeah.
can get people to create a character. And I tell people all the time, sure, I have a character that, it's still me, but there are elements that I will pull out when I'm online doing something like this, or I'm in front of the classroom, or right. So I'm trying to help them understand themselves a bit better and equip them with, these are weapons, quote unquote weapons, that you have already that you can equip and use. So people can relate to it because I'm using as a life story kind of intertwined with work, and people tend to follow that really well, and it allows them to be a bit more creative. So that's why RPGs are just a little easier to work with, a bit more room for creativity.
Very interesting. And there is Pete from Berlin here in the chat, and we have half of the gaming population from Liechtenstein in Europe, from that very tiny but very nice country. Hello, Pan. And there's designer Matt Wolf, and he's making one of his root commands: blow their minds and try out an 18xx game. No, don't do that. And there is designer Nick. Hello, Nick. Hello to the UK. It was great seeing you at Essen. And there's Andre. Of course, it was interesting seeing you, as always, at Essen, and sharing a Chardonnay or two. So, yeah. Um, I did a little bit of preparation via your website and or your current website, and I saw some information why you are using games in a classroom, which I found very interesting. So, for topics as harassment prevention, mental health awareness, inclusion, accessibility, and diversity, why are games good for this, Mandy? If I may ask such a very stupid question, very straight,
No,
stupid question.
it's not stupid at all. It's actually a really good question because people often see those topics as challenging, especially if it doesn't affect you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when we're trying to have those conversations, people tend to be uncomfortable. And these are
Mm-hmm.
conversations that need to become more comfortable to have. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes
Yeah.
people get defensive or feel like they're being attacked, and that's not it at
Mm-hmm.
all. We want people to have awareness. And I find sometimes games is just kind of a foray into what we're talking about without being direct. Some people need that kind of buffer. And I know some people are like, well, we shouldn't have to.
But
Unfortunately, not everybody's the same, right?
yeah.
So, and as a teacher, it is my job to kind of adjust and make the material palatable for all types of people. So it's not that games distract. It almost just, it's great when I can put a game forward in the class. We play the game and they're learning the lessons that I need to teach them, but it's not in maybe just like a direct way that they may not have enjoyed do that,
Mm-hmm.
getting the information that way. So then afterward it's like, well, what did you learn from that game? Now let's come back to the topic of, whether it be harassment prevention or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How does that parallel this? What
Mm-hmm.
did you do in the game that could be the same thing that could be done in this situation in whatever session I'm talking about? And then it kind of gets the brain working like, oh, I see what you did there. I
Mm-hmm.
related to this. You've now put it with the topic we're talking about, which is literally the exact same behavior I'm expecting. And they can't turn around and say, now, well, I wouldn't do that. Well, no, you just did. So tell me how you're going to work through this or how we're going to do this going forward. So some people need that kind of tie in to the subject matter.
Makes total sense what you're saying, and really very good and really very important too. If I may ask, how large is one of your classes? So how many people are there? Because in my opinion, but I may be totally wrong, sometimes if there are too many other strangers or not people, you don't really want to talk too much. And so how large is such a class?
Yeah, these classes generally will between in class, when we're doing them in the classes, we're between 12 and 16.
Mm-hmm.
Virtually now, we do take a few more, so probably about 20, but it's usually not more than that because you're right, you lose that closeness with the class and you have time to guide them versus speak at them. Allow them to develop their ideas, allow them to have a chance to talk.
Yeah, very good. And I think this is great that you are doing this, and that this is possible these days to do in classrooms. So really great. And let me move a few steps back now, Mandy, to when did you personally start gaming, and why did you start gaming, Mandy?
Oh boy. So I've been gaming since I was a child. This is something that was we had game night in my house and it was not an option. You were being voluntold like, "Yes, we're having game night." There's no exceptions here. So, my whole family are chess players.
Ah,
So they all are very good at chess. I am not particularly good at chess, but that's very big in my family. But no, as a children, we always had to have family time. So it was always us playing games, being silly. My mom didn't want us to lose that closeness as a family. I did get away from it for a while. I was doing a lot of things in fashion and makeup and things like that. And, it happens. And then I came back to it probably about 8-ish years ago, but then didn't start doing the content creation until a few years after that. So I've been in and out. So I did have a period where I wasn't doing it, but my brothers were into magic and, things like that. So it was always around. They were into, like Risk and D&D. Like that was their realm of game. But yeah, so it's been a while.
yeah, by the way, this is a very minor question because you were mentioning these terms right now. Do you like the terms content creation or content creator? Is this okay for you? For me, I'm not an English language speaker, as everybody knows. So content creator doesn't sound too well. It seems that you are actually that it uh, decreases the value what you're doing. But how do you see this? Is this okay for you, or is it now because that everybody uses it that you are fine with it?
I don't think you're wrong. I think some of us do, some people do strictly, I just do some videos and that's the end of it. Some of us branch out and do other things beside, reviews and videos. We talk about other kind of gaming adjacent topics, if that makes sense. So in a way, I do agree with you that it kind of does diminish some of us who have done maybe a little bit more. I think this is just a term that's a general overview of kind of what we do. Do I think it's the best term? Probably not. It probably doesn't depict all of the things that we do, but I think I think I've used it because it's the one that's most commonly used. But no, I agree with you. I do think it can diminish what some of us do.
Yeah, because you're doing so much, and we will get to this shortly. And
Sure.
Matt is commending to your mandatory gaming nights in at family. And it's a mandatory fun game night. So
Yes.
of course he's right.
Always.
So how is the gaming scene in Canada? Is it pretty small, or small and growing, or is it rather large these days?
I mean, Canada on a whole has less people or fewer people, excuse me, than a lot of other places. So, it's always hard to compare numbers, but I would say that it's pretty strong. I know I'm in Ottawa, which is not huge, but it's still a decent size, capital of Canada, everybody. And you can always find some new games. Even in I'm teaching classes at work, and then someone will be like, "Oh, I've seen you online before. Are you a gamer?" So I mean, definitely there are people, and there are definitely a lot of pockets. Our conventions, we have them. We have them across Canada on the east, and then the major conventions on the west, and central Canada. They're just maybe not as large, but no, definitely, I think we have a really good population of gamers, and it is continuing to grow, and that's what we want. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So this sounds good. What is the population, if I may ask? If you know this of Canada, by the way.
This is so bad. I should know.
Forget it. I never asked this question. Who cares?
Don't judge me, everybody.
No, I'm definitely not. So, Mandy, we know you are now a gamer. You are living in Canada, but then you started to die for games. What is to die for games?
Oh my goodness. This was just started for fun with a friend. I was like, oh, I didn't really see anybody, kind of like me. When I say like me, like fun hair, just, in general, black females, I know they exist on in gaming, and I'm not saying they weren't there before. I just didn't see a lot of that representation. So I was like, oh, let's give this a whirl. And it was just supposed to be a fun, casual thing. And then I kind of set it up where if people wanted to have a platform to start their own content creation, that they could do that there. And I would give them the opportunity to do that, and then they can branch off and do what they wanted. So that's how it started. And then it kind of snowballed from there, where we started doing work on the Dice Tower with Tom, and then I met Suzanne, and from there the podcast. I mean, so just a whole bunch of things branched off from that. So yeah.
It was the starting point for a lot of things. And let me just post the URL here. So there you go. And Stefan, you see our viewers are wonderful. He found out Canada's 38 million people. So we
Thank
now
you.
both know. Thank you very much, Stefan. Can you please look up Liechtenstein too now? You don't
Yeah.
have to. But as you just said, you are also a member of the Dice Tower team, or is it more like an umbrella or whatever it is? So, what are you doing over there at the Dice Tower?
Yeah, initially I started as a content contributor because I had like segments that used to run, and then Suzanne and I became part of the kind of main team by doing the podcast. So we are the team that does the podcast every 2 weeks. Tom and Eric do 1 week, and then Suzanne and I do the other week. So that was a transition for us because I had done video, so it was rough. But I have to shout out thank you to people who stuck with us while we were figuring it out and are still with us. So.
Yeah, and I think the Dice Tower has a few more viewers than the Spielworxx chat. I think. I'm not sure. But
Just
in
maybe.
numbers, a tiny bit, but in numbers, Stefan said Liechtenstein has 38,750 inhabitants. So it's
Oh
also
wow.
a little bit smaller than Canada or Germany or the US. But we are having here half of the gaming population. So
Yeah,
viewing
which
us.
is
So
great.
this is great. But then you had to die for games. You are a member of the Dice Tower team, but you obviously you didn't have enough. So together with Suzanne, you formed or you started a Twitch stream. So what are you doing there, and why did you are you doing this in addition?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, Salt and Sass Games. Suzanne and I wanted something that was us, that we could do together. And it just started off as like a just a fun kind of channel. Like I'll stream video games sometimes and or like little playthroughs or just chats or I'm doing a puzzle. It's just kind of a mishmash of things. But definitely COVID did not help us trying to get this off the ground more. But we definitely want to push forward with our plans of um Aptastic. I don't know if you're all aware of this. This is a show we had on the Dice Tower, which
Yeah.
might still continue to live there, which we're going to be doing
Mm-hmm.
playthrough of apps
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So that's going to happen, but we're going to be doing more of that on the channel. We have a couple of new ideas. I can't spoil what they are yet until they are solidified, but I think people will be very excited because it is out of the normal realm of what we've been seeing on the Dice Tower or other channels that we're doing. So it was just a way for Suzanne and I to do something together
Mm-hmm.
because I think we make a great team. People seem to enjoy what we do, so why not start that venture?
Yeah, of course, you are doing such a great job, and people, please check out both the Dice Tower and of course, is the URL still the same so that I can put it in here of the Twitch stream? Let me put it
The
in.
Twitch, yeah, so it'll be
Salt and Sass Games.
www.twitch.tv
So
slash
I'll
salt
put
and
it
sass
in.
games. Yes, you have to put
So
the games. If you put salt and sass, that's a totally different channel.
Salt and Sass Games, it's there. So I
Games.
put it in
Yep.
there, and Matt is saying he didn't realize Liechtenstein was that small. Frosthaven had more than twice the number of backers than the population of Liechtenstein. It's really a tiny country here in the midst of Europe, but actually it's quite beautiful. Just small, but why is small
Yeah,
worse than large? So that is
exactly.
really fine. Um, Mandy, I'd like to briefly touch a different
Sure.
subject, large convention in COVID times. So Gen Con
Mm.
happened, Origins happened, Essen Spiel happened last weekend. What did you attend any of these, or and what are you thinking of having conventions in these times?
So I unfortunately did not attend any conventions this year. Travel from Canada was difficult because the border was still
Yeah.
closed between Canada and the US anyway. So that was a bit difficult. And because I have mixed vaccinations, there was contemplation of if people were going to accept having people who had two different types of vaccines. So I said, you know what, it's just too stressful for me. And PAX had asked me to come as a guest, and
Mhm.
it was just too complicated with the travel. Uh, People don't know this. I do not love very busy conventions. For some reason, Essen is like the only one because I don't get to see a lot of all of you. So when I go there, it's just a nice experience. But
Mhm.
like the crowds are a bit different. But like Gen Con, it's
Mhm.
it's a little
Yeah.
much for me. The crowds. So I think even going forward, I'm probably going to do fewer conventions,
Mhm.
just with everything that's happening. And I think I'm going to stick to kind of smaller ones, maybe ones that have a bit more for me to have fun. I usually go and have to work, but I actually really want to see people. I'd love to
Mhm.
make Essen a staple every year, but that's probably the only big one. So yeah, so nothing until next year, and even then next year, I think it'll be minimal attendance for me.
Yeah, I can certainly understand. And right now, still, Germans, I'm pretty sure, can't travel to the US as well. So, but this will be
Right.
changed very soonish. May actually have already changed, but I have
Hmm.
a cross vaccination myself, and this is right now. Even if the borders are open, I can't enter the US. I think
Right.
it will change, but we'll soon notice. Just for people who may be interested in my Essen experience, very briefly of this year. So I thought the first 2 days. So on the whole, gamers were
Hmm.
very disciplined, very disciplined.
Great.
Everybody had a mask and everybody tried to keep their distance. So that was much better than I expected. And Thursday and
Right.
Friday were two of the best convention days I ever had at Essen. So because there were a lot fewer people, but Saturday was pretty it was too
Too
crowded in
busy.
my opinion. Too many people in the
Right.
halls. And Sunday, starting at noon, it was the same. So we'll see. And but I'm a little bit like you. So I'm
Hmm.
don't like the crowds that much,
No,
unless they are in a stadium, in sports stadiums. But
exactly.
otherwise, otherwise not. We'll see. So next year, what are you planning? You said just smaller conventions plus Essen. So anything that is interesting in the first half of the year for people to attend in the US or in Canada?
I still think they're doing a lot of confirmation of dates, but usually in Canada, I usually go to Breakout Con, which is in Toronto. I don't know the dates of that yet, but I do believe that's still happening. I often will attend Proto TO. This isn't people can attend, but people who are showing off their games, prototypes, I like to support because I have a friend who runs it. So hi, Carol. I do attend to support her and the designers because I see a lot of designers there that I know. And that again is also in Toronto. I think is it Halcon. I'm probably getting the name wrong. It's out east, and that was one I was slated to go to as well, and that's in Halifax. So that will be one. So I'm going to do a lot of Canadian, so within Canada conventions. I know Shucks Shut Up and Sit Down. They usually have one out west, which is another one I'll probably attend. In the States, I'm probably looking at The Gathering, which is not one that's public. I was
Mhm.
supposed to go this year, but with everything, it just didn't happen. And that's more for fun. So I'm really just
Mhm.
going for fun. PAX is probably one I'm going to consider. I really enjoyed PAX Unplugged.
So in Philadelphia at the end of the year, right? Okay, yeah, I
Yes,
want
I
to go.
really like that one.
Yeah, I never was there, but for me it's easier because it's a direct flight to Philadelphia. It's just
Ah,
the timing, and to Indianapolis, like you, Gen Con, I think way too crowded. It's worse than
no.
Essen these days. Origins, I'm reconsidering it because I can't see a lot of people. I can't see a lot of people, and it's not that crowded. And for me, the
Right,
timing is a little bit better. June is better than December, early December,
right.
like Philadelphia. And I have already seen all the Essen games, and so. But PAX is something I'd like to consider as well. Are you ever going to BGGcon, or is this something that you are not that interested
So BGGcon, I loved. I had to stop going because we were being pulled out by Dice Tower to go to a lot of the other major conventions, and it often fell on the same time as I
in?
think
PAX.
possibly
Mm.
PAX or something. So I know they have more than one during the year. So Suzanne and I were just talking about this, us going to that BGGcon and just having fun because we end up doing a lot of work, but it would just be nice to see people, and I'm still trying to figure out to see a lot of my European friends, designers, publishers, friends, all of the group if I don't go to Essen. So this is something that if people in the chat can suggest somewhere that we can see everybody, that would be also very nice.
Yeah, please do so. So and I hope you aren't like me who doesn't like to travel that well, so that much. So being at
Yes.
home most of the time is almost my favorite thing. Of course, because you're Canadian, and being a huge hockey fan, I have to ask this. So, are you watching hockey at all? Are you a fan of a certain team?
So hockey is one of those things I much prefer to watch it live. So if I have an opportunity to watch it live, it's so
Yes.
much more exciting. I love it, love it. So people don't know this. I am a fan. I'm not like over the top. So if it's on, and the families overall watch it, but again, live is better. I have a hockey stick signed. It's actually Tim Hunter's hockey stick from the Calgary Flames, and it is signed by the entire team when they won the Stanley Cup in 1989. So
Ah, wow. Now I have to visit you. No.
exactly, just to see the stick.
Yeah, wonderful. So you see, this was the main reason why Mandy is here. I wanted to hear this story. No, of course not. Of course not. But that's exciting because I'm huge into hockey as well. So I agree 100%. Life is so much better than television. But tonight it's on television. My favorite team, Iserlohn Roosters, are playing in Bavaria at Straubing, and of course I will see this. But I haven't seen a live game since early 2020. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because at first it wasn't allowed for a year. It has restarted, but I'm still a little bit scared. But hopefully, with Andre, who is here in the chat, we will see a game in late November. So let's see what it is. And Matt is suggesting, and this I think is a good suggestion,
Oh.
just start MandiCon. So,
Oh my
and
goodness. Who would come to this? I don't know. I don't know.
even as
Okay,
even a bad traveler would come. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Mandy, thank you very much. It was really a pleasure having you here, especially because here it's in the evening, so I will finish this and then see the hockey team. But for you, it's in the middle of the day, so I really appreciate it that you found time. And how can people reach you if they want to reach you?
yeah. So the best place to reach me, probably use my to die for email. There's the number two die for games at gmail.com. You can also see me on YouTube on the same channel, Salt and Sass Games on Twitch, and you can send me messages there if you prefer to do it that way. Instagram, you can find me as the Board Gaming Pinup Girl on Instagram and on Twitter. Before I leave you, though, I wanted to say I get a lot of your games. So a lot of people don't realize that yes, I do get review copies of some games, but I try my best to buy games from people every so often to support. And your games are always very solid. I know Suzanne and I, anything you've put up on Kickstarter lately, I think we've bought. We would have waited till Essen, but with things considered. So if anybody in the chat that has not tried Spielworxx games and you're like me and you like those crunchy, thinky, amazing games, you should definitely try them.
This is very kind. Thank you so much. And really, hopefully, next year we will meet either at Essen or somewhere else at a convention. So I'd love to see you again. So that would be
Absolutely.
wonderful. And thank you also to all viewers. And next week will be a regular boring episode with me presenting Spielworxx and industry news. You can't always have exciting guests. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Mandy, for your time. And till then, till next week, bleibt alle gesund. Black Lives Matter. Bye bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Alla prochaine.